Cervical Instability crew, welcome. I have another very positive update for you today. I had someone reach out to me on the 20th of May and tell me about what had been going on with them. They then tried the HFT basic exercises for 8 or 9 months and they have a pretty cool story. So let me share that with you today. So on the 20th of May, 2025, they reached out and said, "Hello, I'm 17 years old and when I was 15, I had an accident while playing football. A guy accidentally fell on me and at the time I didn't feel much pain and I thought I was fine. But about a year later, I started getting severe upper back pain on the right side, along with neck pain. First of all, this is a classic example of fascial degeneration. Just because you have an accident and then you don't feel any symptoms afterwards, it doesn't mean that there's not densifications, adhesions, and disorganization of the fascia laying dormant in your body that then could resurface later on. In fact, this happens to a lot of people, and a lot of people experience that they may have had even an accident as a child or throughout their development years. And then later on, as they get older, their fascia is degenerating, or they've had another accident, or maybe in a stressful event in their life. Then all of a sudden, these things come to the surface and they can come on really strongly. So remember, fascia does not degenerate linearly. It often can have a sharp drop off, which is what a lot of people experience, which is what I experienced. And that can be really scary. And this is why it's very important for people, once they've had an accident, they see this type of content, they understand fascia's properties and behaviors, that they address it as soon as possible. So then it's easier to address. You don't want to wait for it to get worse to a point where then potentially you're bedridden, because then at that point it can be very difficult to recover from. It can be very difficult to do the hyperarch fascia training, of course, if you can't get out of bed. But also it makes it a lot more complex to try and heal, because then the body has more damage that then you have to recover from, and maybe your body has a low HRV, heart rate variability, and you don't have a very good capacity to recover. So that's why when you notice something, you see this content, you understand the fascial perspective behind cervical instability, you try and start doing things to addressing it straight away. I went to physiotherapists and got x-rays which showed a loss of cervical curve. This is a classic example of loss of fascial tensegrity. Remember, cervical curve loss or cervical instability occurs when the fascia is damaged. It's a tensegrity structure, which means tension and integrity. And this includes the tendons, ligaments, and other connective tissue. We call all of this fascia. So when I'm talking about fascia, I'm not ignoring about the things that you know about ligaments. This is all under the umbrella of fascia. Ligaments don't work alone. It's all part of the same tensegrity structure that has no beginning or end, and that is supposed to be holding your body together. When you notice a loss of cervical curve, that means the tension that's supposed to hold your body together, the good tension, has gone. The doctors just look at the bones and see where they have moved, but that's the symptom. The cause and the root cause of the problem actually in the fascia, the fascial connections, and the damage that has occurred there, which often doesn't show up on scans. And I have a video on that on my YouTube page if you want to hear more about why it's actually really hard to diagnose cervical instability and why a lot of people don't get diagnosed, and then later on they degenerate and they get worse. At this point, it was just pain and no other symptoms. Physiotherapy didn't really help, so I just lived with the pain. Again, physiotherapists, they don't learn about the fascia science, because when we were studying the human body, when scientists were studying the human body, they took the cadavers, they disregarded the fascia, they thought it was filler material, they thought it was junk, they threw it away, and they just studied the muscle. So physical therapists are just trying to attend to the muscle, but the muscle does not have a role in cervical instability. Instability is to do with the fascial connections. How do we know this? Well, first of all, there was a study by Jan Wilk that showed that more than 85% of all injuries are on the fascial layer and don't include the muscle. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, when you understand the tensile strength of fascia, you'll see that it's 552 times stronger than muscle. So it's the tensile strength of fascia around the muscle that actually gives the muscles strength. So it's the fascia that you need to address, because the tension, the tensile strength is being lost. The cervical curve then gets lost. Instability occurs. And so then people try and address the muscle, but that's not the root cause of the problem. The 552 times number comes from a study that was done which showed the tensile strength of fascia, and in the strongest area of the body, the fascial tensile strength is 276 megapascal, and the muscle alone without the fascia is like mush. It's like a mashed banana. It doesn't have a structure really, and it's only 0.5 megapascal. So 552 times stronger fascia is than muscle. So keep that in mind. Cervical instability is a fascial based issue to do with the tensegrity, fascial connections of the body. It's not about the muscle, and the bones are a symptom, or where the bones move to is just a symptom of instability. Physiotherapy didn't really help, so I just lived with the pain. Then about a month ago, I suddenly woke up with neck pain, weird sensations in my ear, and more neurological symptoms. Sleeping is not like doing a bench press or a squat. You don't have a very high level of muscular output. So if you get problems from sleeping, it's clear that there's things within your body, within the fascia, that are disorganized, that are damaged, that aren't doing very well. And since then, I haven't felt the same. If you can give me some information or give me some guidance, I would really appreciate it. I've been searching for answers recently and came across prolotherapy, but it doesn't really seem like a viable option for me. I also found your YouTube channel and really connected with your story. I was also about the same age when I had my accident and injury. And I watched your videos about how fascia changes in the neck after an injury and how the body compensates. It made a lot of sense and really resonated with what I've been going through. If you could suggest some exercises to help with this, I would truly appreciate it. And that's when I said, look, to begin with, you can start doing some of the basic HFT exercises. In the Patreon, there are 16 exercises that you can try. However, for you folk, I would recommend you just start off with the basic ones. And while you're doing those, you can learn about the fascia education and the fascia science. But then I also said, look, for chronic and complex issues, people are going to have to do one-on-one programs. It's not a case of that you can just copy some exercises and everyone's going to recover. That would be fantastic if that was the case, but that's just not how it works. I had cervical instability. The people that went through Chong's program that got fantastic results had cervical instability, and none of our programs were the same. It's the same thing if 5 people go through Chong's program with ACL or ankle injuries, right? Everyone has different dysfunctions. Everyone starts off at a different point. Everyone progresses differently. Everyone has different heart rate variabilities, which tells us what capacity we actually have to recover in between sessions. Everyone is completely different. So everyone needs to be worked with to a tailored custom level in order to address specifically what is wrong with you. Because remember, people that aren't getting better, they're not getting well, they've been going to lots of different doctors, trying lots of different things. These are quite generic practices. It's not specific to you and actually what's wrong with your body, the root cause of the issue. So this work is not some magic thing. It's hard work that requires specific feedback to Chong. You're working closely with him so that each week you can continue to progress. The other thing you have to understand about HFT is that this is like a recipe. We're not trying to just gradually overload the muscle and add more weights and more weights and more weights like in mainstream physical therapy programs. This is about specific fascial processes to change cells, to change fascia structures and change connections. This is completely different, and it does require a recipe based on what's needed to get from A to B, but also to specifically take you through this cellular metamorphosis from having fibroblast cells to having more myofibroblast cells, which are simply a fascia cell that are twice as strong and have twice the ability to remodel and to repair damage that is inside your body. So this process of changing and training the fascia, specifically with Hyperarch Fascia Training, which is Chong's research, is very specific and requires one-to-one coaching. He also said, I understand fascia and have watched Chong's videos on the subject. I'm considering joining the Patreon to access all the videos and exercises, which is what he ended up doing, and then assess the results. If I don't see any improvements, I may need to delve deeper into his program. That's when I talked to him about how most people with chronic and complex issues, they are going to need one-on-one programs because it will have to be specific to them to help them get a result. But of course, everyone can start doing some of the basic HFT exercises, which is what I'm trying to stress in this video. He also said, did you notice any digestion issues? I didn't have that personally, but a lot of people that have cervical instability or other fascial related injuries also can get digestion issues because particularly with CCI, the vagus nerve runs through the neck and this connects into many different types of organs. If the fascia collapses and impacts the vagus nerve, then there's going to be an interruption in signal going to your organs. You can get all sorts of weird symptoms. Again, this is where people chase the symptom, but they're not actually fixing what caused the problem in the first place. Fascia also has a very important role within the sympathetic state of your body and your autonomic processes that go on behind the scenes. So if the fascia is damaged, then a lot of these processes get impacted. Again, more symptoms can occur. Then you start trying to chase those symptoms. It feels like you're completely overwhelmed with all these things that are going on. You have a huge list of symptoms. You're trying to attend to each one of them, but still not addressing what's causing all of it, which could be fascia damage, fascia disorganization, and cervical instability. Then a month later, he said, "Hi, I want to update you regarding my progress. I started the 3 basic HFT exercises. Now I'm progressing further. My pain and stability has improved a lot. Brain fog is gone. The shoulder has stabilized. Now I also feel some feet to glute and glute to core connection, which is fantastic. Thanks to Mr. Chong and his work." And I said, "You're very welcome. He'll be very glad to hear. How long did it take you to feel some of these changes?" And he said 2 weeks until he started to feel some of these changes. And he said he's on his 4th week now and slowly adding more HFT exercises. Now, 8 months, 9 months later, we fast forward to today, and he said, "HFT changed my life." I scrolled back up in the chat and I looked at what we talked about before, and I said, "Hey mate, thanks for the update. How's your condition changed since starting HFT? It's been about 6 months now." It had actually been about 8 or 9 months. And I said, "What have you noticed?" And he said, "My CCI is now resolved. I have 0 symptoms now. I had shoulder instability, which is also resolved. And apart from that, I do calisthenics. My strength has greatly improved and I can run faster. My digestion has improved. My cardiovascular health has also gotten better." So that's fantastic. There's somebody that's young, that's had this scary thing happen to them. They're not sure what's going on. They've gone in, they've researched, they've gone, "Oh, this is something that I haven't attended to yet. I've tried these other things, mainstream physiotherapy, and looked at potentially doing some prolotherapy, but that doesn't quite seem right. I understand the fascia science. I apply it, I work hard." Then a couple months later, bang, he's had a fantastic result. Again, not everyone's going to have this type of result. However, it is important that you do start doing some of the basic HFT exercises. Even if you think you're going to do a program with Chong, start doing them. At least build up some more capacity in your body and start to see some of the changes. Understand that when you're doing the exercises, you are specifically activating and stimulating different fascial processes within the body to create regeneration, to create healing. And watch the fascia lessons, read the fascia lessons that are also in the Patreon page, go through it and go, "Oh, okay, cervical instability is not what my doctors are telling me. There's this whole other side that is not being taught. And this is the reason why people aren't getting better." So go do the basic exercises. You can start off with the ones on my YouTube channel. They are completely free. Then you can move on to Chong's Patreon page, which is the cost of like a Starbucks. We've got thousands of people in there that are learning about their own problems, about fascia, the fascia education, and starting to do more exercises. There's 16 exercises in there, but we're about to add a whole new morning routine, which is about getting the fascia moving and how to start training the fascia in the mornings and start to see some results. If you have any questions, you can message me on Instagram. As per always, you can send me an email and hopefully I hear more success stories in the future.